Sorry, a little late on that there. Sorry about that. A little late on the live stream. Went a little long with seventh grade on that, but I hope everybody's doing good. Let me know when you guys get in. Hello, hello. Oh, a little cascading screen. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. As you come in, let me know through the chat. Let me know who's here. If there's anybody here, I do want to. I do want to uh, talk about topic. It's topic 7, dealing with the Pythagorean theorem, and I'm going to kind of go straight into the. I'm going to kind of go straight into the Blizzard packets, the packets that I linked to. I hope my sound is working. So anybody who is in with me live on this, if you were with me with seventh grade, my stream was going kind of cuckoo. Let me know if my sound is good. Let me know everything's good, or if it's not good, or anything of that sort, or if I'm talking to nobody. just let me, you know, just let me know on this. Try to reset my phone and do all that kind of good stuff. Um, I want to get straight into the dealing with the Pythagorean theorem, kind of helping you guys get through some of that information. I hope that what you go through with some of this, it'll make more sense. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay. All right. Enough. Enough of enough going around with this. Let's get right into this. You remember we were dealing with the Pythagorean theorem. You're dealing with the Pythagorean theorem. I mean, just trying to do as I get down here. All right. So actually, let's do this. Let's start with this. Let's start with the top. Let's start with this first part. So if you see your vocab review on this, okay, you're looking through, and you're saying, well, hey, I'm looking at a definition. I'm saying a blank. So a blank is a logical argument in which every statement of fact is supported by a reason. Is supported by a reason. Now, if you remember anything from class, from what we were doing, if verbal again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Verbalize everything. You're verbalizing this, and you're looking, and you're saying, well, am I gonna go through this and say, converse of the Pythagorean theorem is a logical argument, blah 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 blah. Like, it doesn't make sense. A hypotenuse is a logical argument. A leg is a logical argument. As funny as that sounds, a Pythagorean theorem is a logical argument. How about a proof? A proof, proof. There we go. A proof is a logical argument in which every statement of fact, if I'm trying to prove something, what's up, Elijah? How you doing, man? If I'm trying to prove something, I'm going to try to support my reasoning. I'm trying to prove what's going on with this. Okay. So number 2, the blank states that if a squared plus b squared equals c squared for side lengths, blah, blah, blah. That is 100%, and not, well, let's actually go back with this. The states that if a squared plus b squared equals c squared for those side lengths of a, b, and c, then it's a right triangle. This part right here, which is then the triangle, is a right triangle. This is probably one of the final things we had talked about there. Was this is the converse, not the shoe, but the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, and you can figure the rest with that. Okay, and then number 3, the blank states that in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse, or the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem states that in a right triangle, and if you were to say, well, what's an example? Well, that's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. Just kind of showing a little bit with examples there. That. Let me get down to some of the actual questions that you see right here. So if we were to talk about this, and we were to say, well, find the length of the hypotenuse. Remember, your number 1, finding the length of the hypotenuse. missing side, the side that is across, from the 90-degree angle. So that side that is across from the 90-degree angle is going to be the hypotenuse in that instance. So that side that's across is going to be, and if you go back to your a squared, again, it's going to be a broken record, equals c squared. C squared is your hypotenuse. So your two legs are 5 squared plus your other leg of 12 squared is going to give you c squared on that. You can go through and then say, well, 5 squared is going to be 25, and then 12 squared is going to be 144. Type, if I can write actually, equals c squared. 25 plus 144 is 169 equals c squared. And again, you have to then, if you see, in this instance, c squared, you got to get c by itself. So the inverse of squaring something is taking the square root, You take the square root of 169, and if I'm not mistaken, that should be the number 13, if I'm not mistaken. If I take square root of 169, it's going to be the number 13. Okay? The number 13. So if we say, well, find the length of the hypotenuse, length of the hypotenuse is 13 centimeters on that. Okay? 13 centimeters. And if you, we talked about finding that unknown side length, what you see right here is your hypotenuse. Record, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Your hypotenuse is always going to be what c is, right there. Your longest side on that. Again, anyone who comes into the chat, let me know who's here. Let me know who I'm talking to. I see Elijah on there. If we've got anybody kind of popping in, let me know who's here. All right. The other two side lengths, one of them you know is 7. The other one you don't know. On that. You can call it A, you can call it B. It's totally entirely up to you. But in this instance, I'm going to call that unknown side length to be B. So my A squared is going to be 7 squared plus B squared is going to equal 9 squared. So if I take 7 squared is going to be 49 plus b squared, and then 9 times 9 is going to be 81 on this. So 81, you have to use your inverse operations to be able to get b by itself. You're trying to get b by itself. That's not good. trying to get b by itself here. There we go. Okay. You have to subtract 49 from both sides. You have to subtract 49 from both sides. It'll give us b squared, and then 81 minus 49 is going to be 32. And again, when you want to take the square root of 32, you take that square root of 32, and it's going to give you 5.65. Now, 5.65 in this, so 5.65, it tells you to round to the nearest tenth. The nearest tenth in this, the nearest tenth is going to be your 6. So if you look for your 5 is number 5 or more, change the score. 5 or more, raise the score. So your nearest tenth is going to be 5.7, about 5.7 inches. Okay, about 5.7 inches on this. All right. that covers that for fret 7-1. I hope that kind of makes a little bit of sense. I mean, we talked about that. You know, that was probably one of the more recent things we had kind of went over. I hope that wasn't too difficult. Let me scroll down here to the converse. Now, the converse we talked about is dealing with, you're trying to deal with whether is this triangle all right triangle. You're dealing with, is the triangle all right triangle, and you're going to take the two smaller sides. So if I'm taking my two smaller sides and squaring them, does it equal that third side squared on that? Okay, that's where what we talk about is being the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. 37 would be still your longest side. And you take your other two, 12 squared plus 35. I'm just substituting into the Pythagorean theorem there. I mean, that's all it is. It's the same thing. It's the same thing each time. So if I go back and I say, well, what's 12? Well, what is 12 squared? 12 squared is 144. 12 squared is 144. If I take the number 35 squared, if I take the number 35 and I square that, it's going to give me 1225. It's going to give me 1225. And then if I take the number 37 squared, I know this kind of drones on and on and on, but for this specific kind of thing, I mean, repetition is really the best way of saying it. So if I take 1225 and I add 144, what does it give me? It gives me 1369. Does 1369 equal 1369? Yes, yes it does. So for number one, is the triangle a right triangle? The answer to that is 130% yes. 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 Because a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. All right. So if you go to number two on this, if you go to number two, a triangle has side lengths of 1.5, 2, and 3 inches. Is the triangle a right triangle? Is it a right triangle? You're doing that same thing where I'm taking the two smaller sides, squaring them, adding them up and squaring. All I'm doing is just substituting it in for a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if I had a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And all I'm doing again is I'm just substituting in. So if I had the two smaller sides, 1.5 squared plus 2 squared equals 3 squared. You're going through and it's the same exact thing, guys. It's the same exact thing. Where if I'm taking 1.5 and I'm squaring, it's going to give me 2.25. I think you can kind of already see what's kind of going on right here. If I have 2.25 plus, and then 2 times 2 is 4, equaling 3 times 3, which is 9, does this equal this? The answer to that is 130% no. No, because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared. All right, that's enough of that part right there. All right, get to another section here. What's up, Malachi? How you doing? How you doing? All right. So let me scroll down. Let me scroll down. So like if you were to look at number one, and it's just like this is just talking about using the theorem to solve problems. You're using the theorem to solve the problem here. So you have a basketball court is in the shape of a rectangle. So if you have a rectangle, it's more more bright this way. So if I have a rectangle in this instance, is in the shape of a rectangle that is 94 feet long. So 94 feet long, the longer side, and 50 feet wide. So 50 feet wide. What is the length of a diagonal? Now, if you didn't know what a diagonal meant, a diagonal connects. it's what it says it is here. It's a diagonal. It goes from one side, one corner, to the other opposite corner right there. All right. So the question to you is what is the length of that diagonal? Well, you know that with this rectangle, you have a 90-degree angle here. All right. And what it ends up being. I'm doing fine, Malachi. It's you know, sorry if I'm a little delayed with my sorry if I'm a little delayed with my answer here. It's just like I said, having some spectrum internet issues. So it's kind of fun stuff. I hope everything's going good, man. I really do. I really do. Um, if you if you take your two sides here, you have your 50, and you have your 94. If I take 50 squared plus 90 squared, it's going to give me my length of that diagonal. I guess the idea of this question right here is to know is how to set it up. Just with a lot of things in math, it's how to set it up is always kind of the issue. It's kind of the issue. That should be a 94, by the way. That is a 4. Oh, good. 94. There we go. So if I take 50, if I take the number 50 and I square it, it's going to give me 2,500. So if I have 2,500 and I add 94 squared, if I add 94 squared, it gives me 8836. So these big numbers, right? These big numbers, 8836 equals c squared. Well, you're going to take 8836 and you're going to add 2,500, and it's going to give me, in this instance, 11,336. So it's going to give me 11,336 c squared equals c squared on this. Okay. You then just have to take your square root. So to get your inverse, I'm sorry, to get to get c totally by itself, you're going to take the square root of 11,336. When you do that, when you take that square root of 11,336, it gives you this long number right here. It gives you this 106.4706 and so on and so forth and all that kind of good stuff. The question's telling you to round to the nearest tenth. So you look at your 4. If you remember, you look at your 4 on this. That is a tenth. And you look at the number to the right of that. And in this instance, the number to the right is a 7. So you're going to raise that 4 up 1. Okay. So when you raise that 4 up 1, your answer here to the nearest tenth was the length of that diagonal. It's about 106.5 feet. Okay. 106.5 feet on that. Okay. It's making sense. Hope it's making sense. I know this is, I think I said when I was going over this, I know this is kind of dry information. Dry meaning kind of just kind of like, but I mean, it's something to where you're gonna see it all the time with this. Anything you can remember, always remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared. One c is your hypotenuse, and b and a are going to be the two legs of your right triangle. Okay. Let me try to get you a piece of this last part here. I go down to 7, 4, and we talk about finding distance. And we started doing this, and that's where I think everything started happening. Finding distance in the coordinate plane. Finding distance in the coordinate plane. Here's the thing. This is where I got to zoom in with this because I got to make use of my drawing capabilities here. So points C and D. So points C and D represent the location of 2 parks on a map. Find the distance between the parks if the length of each unit on the grid is equal to 25 miles. Round to the nearest mile. There's many parts of this. Okay? When we work with this, you remember, I think we did I would say to you, and I would say, well, if I draw point to the left, if I draw D going to the left, where does it meet C coming down? Okay, you're creating a right triangle is what you're doing here. And I hope that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Um, you created now your right triangle. Okay? Here's the next part. How many units, how much unit, look at the length of each unit on the grid. Now it says that length of each unit is equal to 25 miles. I'm going to stop you here and say, we're going to deal with that part, that 25-mile part at the end. Just deal with it as counting each unit as one right now. Okay. If I were to call this point B, whatever, well, let's call it point E. Point E. That's an E. Our length of our one side of our one leg is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 6 units on this side. On our other leg, it's 1, 2, 3 units here. We need to find the distance between the parks. The distance between the parks. We're trying to find this right here. Okay. One more time. You verbalize. If you verbalize everything, it helps to express it. So the distance between the parks is what you're trying to find. You're trying to find the hypotenuse of this right triangle. So back, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A can be 3. Your next side is 6. And it's going to give you c squared. 3 squared, so 3 squared is going to be 9. 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. And you'll have your c squared. 36 plus 9 is going to be 45. 45 equals c squared. Now, here is where I guess the right way to say this, if you were to sit there and go through and say, well, I'm going to take that square root of 45. So that square root of 45 is going to give you about 6.7. So it's about 6.7 units for C. 6.7 units for C. So C, take the square root of 45, it's going to be C equals about 6.7 units. But the question is saying to round to the nearest mile, right? Let's take 6.7. Let's take 6.7 and multiply by, and this is where I'm going back to talking about the 25 miles right there. 6.7 times 25 is going to give us about 167, 168 in between of that 167 and 168. Okay. So it says to round to the nearest mile, that would be 100. That would be 168 miles. About 168 miles. Okay. Hope that's dealing with distance, finding distance in the coordinate plane and distance in the coordinate plane. I'm trying to unzoom myself here. 1 second. I mean, that's dealing with finding distance. Again, these questions explain things rather, you get an explanation on the left side and you get the practice problems here. I mean, again, these things help. These things work good. With that being said, I hope you guys are staying safe. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm more than happy to address a question, to put out a subsequent video. If you do have a question, just please let me know. Please let me know. I said I'm more than happy to address and help out. Okay. You guys obviously can reach out via Google Classroom. With that being said, I hope you guys stay safe. Take care. Have a good day.